Hey, I wanted to show you how to make this tomato pasta with vegetables and feta. It's a really big dish that can feed a larger family, and quite budget friendly as well. It is a vegetarian dish that makes quite a lot of pasta. If you wanted to make it with meat in it, you could add a can of tuna or add some diced chicken in to the veroma with the veggies or some cut up ham, something like that. But I like it the way it is. Our family enjoys this recipe and it feeds all six of us with leftovers usually. So, well, definitely. So I'm just going to press start and show you how it is done. The first step is to add carrot just chopped in pieces, an onion, and some garlic. So all that is just going in. So carrot, onion, garlic, yeah. And then it's telling me to put the lid on. So we do that and we're going to chop that on speed 7 for 3 seconds. I'm going to want a spatula to scrape that down. So scrape down. So I'll show you what we have here. Nicely chopped. A lot of recipes, when they say to add in an onion and saute the onion and garlic, I often add veggies, zucchini, capsicum, carrots, spinach, whatever, mushrooms. This time I'm just following the recipe that has the carrot in it because we're going to be putting a lot of veggies in it later as well. So add some oil. The scales come up anytime it asks you to add an ingredient. So just watching the scales as it gets up to 20 grams, as my oil slowly drizzles in. Cool. And so now we're going to saute that for 3 minutes on 120 degrees speed 1. While that's happening, I can show you. While that is happening, I will look ahead by pressing these 3 dots and go to the recipe detail so I can go to the pantry and get the rest of these ingredients out. So I've got 3 minutes to be productive, get everything out. But I'll pause the video for yourself. It's doing its cool down now, so only a few seconds. I'll explain in a second. So now we are adding the rest of the sauce ingredients. So the scales have come up. It's asking us for some water. So that we're making this sauce here and we're going to be cooking the pasta in this sauce. So water is an important ingredient in the sauce so that it can absorb into the dried pasta. I don't want to overgo it. It's good. So yep, then we press next, see what's next. So we're putting in our tinned tomatoes. And that's asking for 2 tins. You could put fresh in if you wanted, or you could use passata if that's what you've got. Whatever you've got to make a tomato, sauce. And I've used whole tomatoes because that's just what I buy. So I'm going to need to just turn up the speed a little bit to blend it in. And that's okay. It only takes a few seconds. So if you use diced tomatoes, you wouldn't need to do that. How are we going? This look pretty empty. Okay. And some tomato paste, which you can make in your Thermomix. The recipe on Cookie Do to make tomato paste. It's basically just cooking and blending a whole heap of tomatoes. Veggie stock paste. Love it, love it. So this is our very interesting looking ingredient. Hopefully you've all got some. I'm almost at the end, as you can see. Need to scrape some out. The recipe for veggie stock paste fills this whole container and then you keep it in your freezer. And because of all the salt content, it stays soft and scoopable. I've had this out for a few minutes now, so it's a bit runnier than normal, but yeah, it's really easy. It's great. I love making my own stock paste because then you know your whole meal is 100% homemade by you, additive free. And you just use whatever veggies and herbs you have happening at the moment in your fridge, and also saves you money. It's a lot cheaper than buying stock. So now, remember I said I needed to blend that. So I'm going to go out of the recipe by pressing home and go to my speed. I'm going to choose speed 4, just for a few seconds. Sounds good. So 4 seconds, speed 4. Now to come back into the recipe, we just press the bookmark and we're back. So one thing to let you know, I'm a bit lazy in the kitchen. So but this recipe is asking for diced veggies. So one thing I like to do is get my Thermomix to dice them for me. So, if I was thinking, I would have done that at the beginning of the recipe. I would have diced these veggies and then tipped them straight into here and then carried on with the recipe. I wasn't thinking, I just went straight into the recipe, but that's okay because I have another bowl. So it's asking me to put in some capsicum and zucchini. I'm putting in more than the recipe asks for. I've got 1.5 capsicums because I had a half capsicum ready from something else. And I've got really big zucchinis. So that is all just going in. So I've got a very full bowl of veggies. And I want to dice those on speed 4. Because I don't care that they look perfectly arched or cubed. I just want them to be bite-sized. That looks pretty good, actually. So that was a few seconds. I can show you what we've got here. Nicely diced. Kind of make sure by just scraping around. Looks good. So now so you could do that by hand, or yeah, as I said, before the recipe begins, do that in the Thermomix and then set it aside in your Varoma. So I put my Varoma on and it's asking me to add my capsicum cut into slices and my zucchini cut into little slices. So easy, it's all just going on. You can't see what I'm doing really, but it's not that exciting. Just pouring into the Varoma. And yeah, I've bulked it up a bit than what the recipe says, actually quite a bit now that I look at the scales, but I like to do that. So all of that coming out of that second bowl. And then we're going to add in some frozen peas, 150 grams. And you could put more if you wanted. I put in a few more. Just pour it in. It's the main thing is that you're not overflowing the Varoma. And then we're putting in some mushrooms cut into strips. I'm just going to move this around a bit. So it was actually cheaper, so funny, to buy sliced mushrooms than it was to buy whole mushrooms. So whatever. So adding in, if I was buying whole mushrooms, I would have added it in with the zucchini and capsicum and got the Thermomix to dice it for me. Okay, but that's going in. I'm putting in a bit more than the scales say because I've got some room at the top of my Varoma. And you know, as I said, we're wanting to feed a crowd. I'll show you what we've got happening so far. So we've got our zucchini, capsicum, peas, and mushrooms. And then we're going to put in some feta, which I have just cubed by hand because it would be a gooey mess if I put that in the Thermomix. And that's okay, that's quick. Sometimes it's okay to actually do some work. And the last step is some herbs, I think. Yeah, season with herbs. I've got thyme, oregano, whatever herbs you want to use, and salt. It says to do a teaspoon, so I'm being very generous with this shaker. Okay, so then we're going to secure our lid. And that is going to cook. So above, the sauce will cook in here. And above it, we've got the Varoma steaming. And then after 9 minutes, when it's hopefully heated up, we add the pasta in and we continue cooking. So for those few minutes, I'll just pause the recording. Okay, that is been cooking for 9 minutes. It tells us to remove the Varoma. So it's going to drip a bit. So you could take the lid off, but in the interest of keeping the steam in, I'm just going to pop it into my bowl. You could just put it on a board. Okay, so we're going to add some pasta. It says to use short dried pasta. like penne, fusilli, I don't know what that word is. I'm just using elbows because that's what jumps out at me. And just watching the scales as I pour it in. Doesn't matter if I go a bit over, because I can see there's room in there. As long as you don't go over the max line, you're all good. So, and I don't know if the recipe says to do this or not. It doesn't, but I should just show you. It's sitting, the pasta's just kind of on top of the sauce. So just to give it a little helping hand, I do like to just make sure it's all incorporated. There, just so it cooks evenly. Only takes a second to do things like that. So aroma comes back and we carry on. So now this wants to cook for 10 minutes and then it will be ready. Okay, that is perfect. Finishing. So I think the next step is just to combine everything. So whenever I take the lid off my Varoma, I do it away from my face. So I don't know if you can see. Doing it this way so that the steam, see all that steam that's come out? I don't want that coming towards my face. So, and then I tip the lid upside down and I can use that as a drip tray. I also like to tip my, very saucy here. I'm just gonna scrape that in. I like to tip my bowl lid upside down as well to put on the bench so it doesn't drip everywhere. And then I tip all this in here. This is all the pasta and the sauce. You can see it's a lot. And sorry, just getting that all out. And okay, yeah. So I'm using a really big bowl. This is a huge bowl that I'm using. Just whatever you have works. If you don't have a nice big bowl, you could use a big pot or something, whatever. And then adding in all these veggies that have all been steaming here. I don't know if you saw just then, but there was leftover room in the Verona. We could have even added more than what the recipe said. But this really does, as it is, feeds a lot of people. But yeah, being able to bulk it up even more is good if you've got extra people to feed. So then it's just a matter of stirring it all through. It smells really good and I'm actually hungry, so this is great. I don't know if you just heard through the speaker that my husband just got home, so he's ready to eat as well. And here we have a giant pot of pasta, all made in the Thermomix with very little effort on my behalf, as you saw. And the whole time the Thermomix was paused for those cooking times, I was not in the kitchen doing anything. And there we go. I need to tilt the camera so you can see better. So, oh, the other thing I was going to say, if you wanted to make it even more budget friendly, even though this is quite cheap, like you can use whatever veggies are in season, whatever you've got. You can use frozen if that's better for you, whatever you have. If you didn't want to use the feta, you could just leave that out and at the end stir through some grated normal tasty cheese. So, but the feta does taste really good. Just wanting to share another money saving tip that you can just substitute anything out to suit your budget. Cool. Well, there you go. A nice big one pot pasta.